I would like to start perhaps with a short introduction, but before that I just want to say and to repeat what was discussed yesterday, that in the last couple of years we've seen a massive rollout of renewable energy sources across Europe, globally actually, and of course in the region of Southeast Europe. This of course has created a lot of new situations, a lot of new challenges for different stakeholders. This has created market conditions which, let's say, a decade ago, very few people would have anticipated. We see in the last couple of weeks negative prices, close to zero prices, even in our region, which was not the case a lot in recent years, although we've had situations, of course, of higher supply than demand. And we have seen grid curtailments that are, let's say, above average compared to previous years. I think that we are in a very good company here to discuss how this is working out in different countries. We have reputable panelists with specific professional background that can tell us how they see the situation, how they see the renewables and grids interaction evolving in the years to come. So I would start with giving the floor to Mr. Zarchev for a short introduction, then to Andrija, who is sitting on my left, and then I would like the colleagues who are online to say a couple of words about themselves, but all in all, we are going to try to keep it short, concise, and then leave some room for questions from the audience. So, Mr. Zarchev, let's start with you. Tell us a couple of words about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm Dimitar Zarchev. Most of you probably know me. I'm the manager of the National Dispatching Center. So I'm actually liable for the continuous operation of the Bulgarian power system and also its interconnection to the rest of the systems in continental Europe synchronous area. Having this background, I'm dealing, of course, with automation, with planning, with real-time control, and all the activities that are connected to it. I would say that our unit, we as dispatchers, we are actually the users also of the balancing market, because finally we need to keep to maintain the balance of the system the whole time. Maybe we can go in details later on after you introduce the rest of the participants.
Okay, thank you. Andrija, tell us a couple of words about yourself. What do you do with CWP and what is your role with regards to grids?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for showing up early. Also, thank you for from the organization for inviting me. This conference is very dear to me because first time when I visited Sofia, actually it was because of the conference. Again, it's appreciated very much. So my background is power system engineering. I've been working as a consultant in the Electricity Coordinating Center in Belgrade. The origin of this organization is actually, it was a dispatch and coordination center for the Southeast Europe when the grid was split due to the war in Yugoslavia, and then evolved to the consulting company owned by 4 TSOs of ex-Yugoslavia countries. So we did a lot of modeling development in the region, connection with the first renewables, then I moved to the international consultancy company doing on a project worldwide, and for the last almost 3 years working with the CWP and as a developer and supporting the company and working in the company for all the grid connected projects as a technical support with all the new technologies, and in the latest time also a lot of thinking is within the company about the storage and what would be the best usage of the storage to support our project and to support further integration of renewables.
Great, thank you very much. Then I hope we have Massimo Ceccariglia online from Mytilineos. Massimo, do you hear me?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well. Massimo couldn't join us today for personal reasons, but we're happy to have him online. So, Massimo, tell us about yourself, your role with Mytilineos, one of the big industrial companies in our part of Europe, and also, obviously, your background as part of the TSO in Italy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nikola. Thank you very much for inviting me for this very interesting panel and try to support the discussion regarding grid and all the grid opportunities that renewables could put in place. If I have to say some words regarding my experience, I've worked for 20 years in the transmission system operator of Italy. I was part of Terna. And at the time, I started as in the planning authorization division, and then until 2009, and from 2010 to 2014, I was in charge. I was expatriated in Montenegro, and I was in charge for the developing and the authorization and all the regulatory issue and discussion negotiation for the cable. That cable that is now connecting, it is working very well between Kotor and Pescara. Then from 2015 until 2020, I served as international business developer as head of Eastern Europe development in Terna, supporting TSOs of the area mostly in order to, let's say, try to evaluate how to better develop interconnection and develop internal lines. And since November 2022, I was happy to join Mytilineos as responsible for the renewables and grid development in order, because we consider, let's say, that is not possible to develop renewables without having in mind all the consequences that we have on the grid. So this is something that Mytilineos knows very well, and this is our approach that we have in all the countries in which we are going to operate.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Massimo. Very informative.
Pleasure.
And now I hope we also have Biljana, Dr. Biljana Stojkovska online. She's joining us from London, working with BP and previously with the UK TSO National Grid. Biljana, do you hear me?
I hear you very well. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, great.
Excellent, great, okay, and you can see me, okay, good, excellent, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I hope in the future I might be with you in the room, but this time on a webinar. So as you said, I'm Biljana Stojkovska. I currently work in BP as a transmission commercial manager. What that means in simple terms means that I'm looking after commercial assessment for our low carbon assets, generation and demand, assessing how network congestion, network charges, and revenue from ancillary services are impacting our portfolio globally. Prior joining BP in 2022, I worked 10 plus years in National Grid UK, which is a system operator in UK, but I have various roles in National Grid, technical and commercial, in planning department and in operational department. I started in asset management, and before I joined BP, I was working in system operator, directing the holistic network design for connecting offshore wind farms to UK, and also directing one of the commercial projects in trialing in UK, how to use the reactive power for services in the network. This discussion today, I hope I will be able to contribute with experience from my both roles in National Grid and in BP, particularly how to manage the congestion and share the experience of the roadmap, how UK network is seeing transition to operating the network with zero carbon, how that looks like. I will be able to share experience, how much percentage of renewable means pro operation of the network without a problem, and when the problems will start and what problems we see and how we overcome that. Happy to talk about commercial services and solutions in the future, as I strongly believe that building the network will not be the only solution. So we need to strike the right balance between building the network and commercial services in order to make grid ready for the future. So this is from me. I'm looking forward for our discussion and the question from audience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Biljana. That was also very informative. Straight to the point then, I'm starting with Mr. Zarchev. Massive rollout of renewables across Europe, as we already mentioned, in our region as well, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, all of them having had record years of new solar installments. You've been actually a board member of ENTSO-E until recently, also, as you mentioned, working closely with the TSOs of the neighboring countries. So what is your take? What is happening in Europe? And what is the way forward? How is also our region going to cope given the general context of European developments?
Well, thanks for this question. I don't know whether I should thank you for this question. But in general, yes, it's a fact. Europe is decarbonizing. And it's decarbonizing extremely aggressive. This time, what happened is that there are huge continental-wide plans for decarbonizing. Of course, probably you have already heard that offshore wind generation will be the new source of stability and continuity in the power generation sector. At least this is promoted by ENTSO-E. And there will be a lot of services that will be needed to be introduced in addition in order to replace the conventional generation and the current sources of stability that we know and that we operate. What does this mean? This means if you look at the 10-year development plan of ENTSO-E, you'll see a vast amount of grid development. You'll see that there are already shown offshore grids. There is integrated plan for so-called ONDP, Offshore Network Development Plan. You'll see that regarding the resources and the resource adequacy, there is a need in all the TSOs to new sources of stability and new sources for balancing to be introduced. And you'll see more and more interconnections. Even though there is one, I'm sorry I didn't bring this presentation, there is one slide that shows that even with this ambitious plan that is already on the ENTSO-E site and is adopted by all the operators, still the grid need is much bigger than this. Really, and it becomes bigger by thousands of megawatts. What does this mean? Actually, when we are talking about power balancing and grid stability, system security, let's call it, we are talking not only supplying the generation, but we are talking about meeting the load and generation, first of all, and then provide all the grid forming capabilities of the connecting system in order to be able to handle the reactive power flows, to be able to maintain the voltages, to be able to provide angle stability, low frequency oscillations to be damped all over. So in general, to provide the grid security that we are bound to preserve as TSOs. In this situation where we actually are losing our conventional generation, where all these, let's say, characteristics are given by the nature of the process itself of production of electricity, we have to think now for introducing new sources of stability and new sources of balancing. This is a fact. One of the sources that is already applied, and it is applied maybe in most of the countries in Europe, this is the market change. The real balancing market change, it was introduced actually from 1st of May, also here in Bulgaria, introducing the so-called negative pricing. Actually, it's payment to the producers that are willing to participate in the balancing of the system. And also inclusion of all types of sources inside this equation. So all the sources to be helping to the balancing of the system. Second thing that is becoming extremely important, especially with this really vast introduction of renewable sources, is becoming the storage. Because by nature, if you take a photovoltaic installation, it produces electricity actually in the times of low loads, where you don't actually need that much. So in order to be able to shift this production to your peak loads, you need to store it somewhere. This is just
Victor,
for a
sorry
thought.
to briefly interrupt you. I want to actually switch in Biljana here because UK has been leading the pack in many of these topics that you already mentioned in terms of general developments ahead of the pack. So Biljana, can you tell us a little bit how is that working out? I mean, you've seen it on the side of the TSO until a couple of years ago. Now you're, let's say, active as a representative of one of the very big developers, operators, and service providers in the country. So how is this new normal and how is, let's say, storage alleviating this new normal in the conditions that you see in UK?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I just want to maybe reflect the roadmap in UK to the transition to low carbon operation of network starts in 2002. So it is quite been a time when we transition where we are. What we experienced is that when we have penetration of 30 to 40% of renewables in the network was operating more or less without significant operational challenges. But when we had more than 40% of renewables in the network, and in the moment we have around 80 to 85%, the first problem which we experienced was stability and inertia as a first problem. As our colleague Zarchev said, that conventional plants which have inherent characteristic to support stability and inertia were retiring from the network. In UK, we only have remaining 4 conventional coal plants, and the other flexibility is coming from gas plants. The second problem which we had, it was the voltage management in parallel with frequency management. So these are the top 3 operational challenges when we see, following by problems with black start capabilities, because with retiring of the conventional plant, black start capabilities were reducing, and we introduced the new roadmap how to provide black start capability from intermittent sources, and as well how to manage the network congestion. So in my experience and in the role of BP, I've been presenting and talking to government globally, particularly government in Vietnam, Oman, and Egypt. All the countries will probably first reach the problem of stability and inertia, following by voltage and frequency as equally important. So one of the roadmap actions which UK did is updating the tools in control room, as you call it, dispatch center, with the commercial tools, how to manage the stability inertia in the system. So nowadays, if you're a participant in UK market, you can participate in many tenders. And one of the most important tenders is tenders for stability and inertia in different parts of the network, following with tenders for short circuit, for frequency services, which are now quite significantly different than it was in the past, and voltage pathfinder. These are new services. They are not part of the grid code in the moment. They're called pathfinders, and help Great Britain transmission system to cope with the changes in a quicker way, because until things go into grid code, it takes time and it's quite time delayed. Batteries, of course, has quite an important role to play in the system. Majority of the batteries are connecting where are making the money and revenues from frequency services, and they're very good for the fast frequency response, particularly the one less than 1 second, which system operator is requiring in the system. So this is the driver for the storage, but and batteries. But I have to say that the storage was not the only way how to manage the system. Is the commercial services which system operator is developing for generation and demand, which helps them to manage particularly inertia and stability alongside frequency and voltage. So combination of all of them. And I would like to say that while batteries are a solution, they're not always the solution. Depends on the characteristic and topology of the network. I've seen across the Europe countries where batteries are not that beneficial as probably we all are expecting. I can point it out the example from Sweden, where they don't think so the batteries will help them that much as probably they expected with network congestion.
Okay, so it's safe to say that there are market mechanisms which allow private actors, developers, service providers to act in support of TSOs, be it in the UK or in other countries. So Massimo, given your experience, again, having had a role in a TSO or TSOs and being now in the position to work with one of the big regional developers, but also big energy consumer in the region of Southeast Europe, I think the biggest aluminium company probably in Europe or among the biggest ones. So what is your take? How can private companies, developers, operators work together with public entities in order to speed up permitting perhaps? I mean, we've seen examples of private actors helping TSOs upgrade the grid to also, of course, connect quicker, but also in terms of providing necessary services to alleviate certain strains.
Nikola, thank you very much for this very challenging question. And let me say something basic, that is the following. So the point, in my opinion, is the following, and probably Mr. Zarchev and all the other representatives of such big company that they are in the panel could, at some extent, agree. So players, reliable players like Mytilineos and like the very important companies like the ones that are here, probably they are thinking that they are ready to support the system. To support the system with the possibility to sit together and support what is needed for the system. This is for mutual beneficial for the system, for the country, for the players, and so on. And there are some are very important. This is what I've done in the last years in the Southeast Europe and when I was in Terra, but also here in Mytilineos. I'm continuing the discussion. How is it possible that private could support the public in a public-private partnership? This is, in my opinion, this is something like a key for continuing the discussion. And as Mr. Zarchev said, the grid has to be reinforced, and everything that has been planned now, it seems to be at certain point in the midterm obsolete, considering the huge amount of renewables that will be connected in the upcoming years. So if you're going to consider that, for example, let me tell you that the Monita, the undersea cable, since the moment of this cable has been designed and conceptualized, 12 years passed by from the moment in which we signed with Montenegro the first term sheet, and then when the COD will be placed in 2019. And so all the interconnection and all the developments, even if this development and all those developments, if there are some IFIs, loans and grants that has to be taken, mostly in the eastern part of Europe, this kind of setup is always present, in which all the developments needs loans and grants for IFIs. I think that something like 10, 15 years from the idea to the COD of this new infrastructure is part of is something that we have to take into account. And there is also a minor part of the discussion that is the following, probably. Using this grant, we are going to, let's say, increase the country debt due to the fact that those loans, they are not for free, and some sovereign guarantee has to be, in some cases, issued. So there are very important opportunities in this way to consider the real possibility in which, with the support of the private market, some kind of grid or any kind of infrastructure related to services, as Mrs. Stokowska said, like batteries or any other kind of infrastructure, could be put in place together. And it's not far away from here, but there are very nice, let's say, regulation that already are in place, like in Montenegro, like in Albania, in which the energy law now envisages the possibility for a private company to discuss with the TSO how to develop a part of the grid that will be necessary for the investor and for the TSO. And at the end of the day, try to find a commercial agreement in which this infrastructure could be paid back in certain point, in certain numbers, and with a very nice structure. This is very important.
Massimo, thank you very much. Very important point. I'm going to come back to it. I just saw that Dimitar had an intervention here. Maybe you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you very much. Based on what you said, actually, you put the two storylines that are extremely vital at the moment. First one, handling the active power, and the second one, handling the grid stability. As you can imagine, with the DC cable, you cannot handle the grid stability because you're actually decoupling parts of the system from another parts, and you're preventing the transmission of stability and inertia between these two parts. We have to keep in mind that continental Europe is maybe the biggest synchronously operating interconnected area in the whole world. So there must be a very strict basic technical rules in order this grid to continue to operate in this safe manner, and to be able to maintain, yes, the current level of system security, and provide, let's say, stability basis for market operation, for exchanges, and so on and so on. The second topic you brought, it is extremely interesting topic, and this is something that we as TSO here on the Balkans are really interested in, and let's say not only interested in, but really active on this. This is interconnection on regional level, and also interconnection of European level, in order to be able to really use all the advantages that can be used from the region, from its specific geographical point, and also taking all the advantages that Central and Northern Europe they have, based on the specific conditions that they're meeting there, because we must not lie to ourselves. We'll become more and more weather dependent, more and more renewable energy sources we are imposing in the network.
Dimitar, this is very important. I want to come back to it in a couple of minutes, because it's one of the key themes of what we do with cross-border capacity in the years to come. But first, I just want to switch in Andrija here, because he has a somewhat different, perhaps, view, working now with one of the biggest regional developers and also global, to be honest. So here you're mostly known as a wind company, having developed the biggest wind project onshore wind project in Europe, in Romania, also working on utility scale wind in Bulgaria, Serbia, other countries in the region, Ukraine as well. But CWP is also known for its renewable and hydrogen hubs, gigawatt scale across different geographies. So your role is mostly in Europe, focused on grids. How do you see this line of conversation we are having? How can private companies benefit from the given situation, and
as you mentioned, we are a regional company, so we are closely monitoring whole development across the region, being present in most of the countries in the Balkans. So every development is very significant because our projects are large, and overall the integration of renewables measures with a gigawatt. So every new interconnection, every new reinforcements means probably gigawatt or few gigawatts more for integration. Of course, that needs to be blended properly so the stability is maintained, because essentially the first interconnection and general interconnections were not built for the large transfer of power. It was built for the stability and the security of the systems, so the system could mutually support. So now the scenarios that we can see of the large transfer of the power from the west to the south are often even a scary thing to the TSO. Whenever they reach loading of the transmission lines interconnections, which is at the level of 70–80%, it's almost a red light, because any outage of this interconnection can lead to the cascade outages of the other lines, and you can easily have a split. The last one was in Ernestino in Croatia, where effectively have a surplus of 6 gigawatt in our region here, and basically there was a whole investigation and a process how to reconnect. In this reconnection, essentially the HVDC also played a good role. Yes, it splits two synchronous parts because you cannot transfer the inertia between two parts of the system where the HVDC connected, but very good thing about
maybe
HVDC
just
is
a
connection.
brief intervention here for the non-technical part of our audience. HVDC is basically the high voltage direct current lines, and
If
the
we
grid
go-
now is mostly AC based.
Yes,
alternating
AC-based grid provides all the services, basic services, grid forming services that Biljana mentioned, actually, and I also referred to at the moment. And DC, this is actually transmission of vast amounts of active power between 2 points of the grid. But if we are speaking about the continental Europe synchronous area, we have to think and to have the basis in mind that actually this grid is designed to withstand the reference incident, so-called reference incident, which is roughly 3,000 megawatts. So if you have an outage of 3,000 megawatts somewhere in continental Europe, you have a decrease of 200 millihertz of frequency. And this is the biggest steady-state frequency deviation that can be handled by the TSOs, by primary, secondary, and tertiary control. Of course, primary in the first 30 seconds of the incident, prior to startup of the special protection systems all over the continent, which are leading to actually to curtailment of generation, of loads, and so on, in order this system to be balanced again and to reach its nominal frequency or the set point frequency, that is 50 hertz. Sorry. So when we are talking about vast transmission of energy between two areas, we have to always keep in mind that this is becoming an issue of security, because what do you do in this case? Should you impose N-1 security, or should you refer to, for example, nuclear type of security, which is N-3, or you are going to a really higher level in order, with a single disturbance, to be able to preserve the network? So this is quite an interesting, to the planning department, quite an interesting question towards the planning department.
Exactly, that's also the direction I wanted to go to you, Andrija, and then maybe to Biljana again. So basically, you're active in a field where you need to take care about grid connections of new projects that are not yet built on the development, but you should also think, as you're a company that also operates plants, how you're going to be able to work with the TSOs.
Correct. So this interaction with the TSO is very important for us, and we're hoping that it's going to be further enhanced, because we don't see enough of that. Obviously, the developers, in general, renewable developers, is probably the main party to the TSO, because in the past it was straightforward. It was not easy to develop the system, but there were public utilities who were building the generation, and the grid followed. But now, on the other side, we have uncertainty of the location, of the sizes of the renewables, so it's not even an easy task for the TSO. So I think it's very important to open discussion and communication between these two parties. I can also share some examples. For example, in Serbia, there was a hold of integration of renewables, and now we have a new program where every 6 months all applications are gathered into one analysis of the TSO, and they produce for each party a connection option. This connection option is not binary anymore. For example, you could connect 100 megawatt. If n-1 didn't work, you have 0. But now they go for the probabilistic approach, where they even allow you connection with the possible restriction during the operation, where you have defined time with the certain outages, you will be curtailed, for example. In Serbia, you can connect around 4 to 5 gigawatts. Now, after 5 gigawatts, you need to have a battery, for example. So it's another addition to your renewable project. In Montenegro, for example, up to 1.5 gigawatt was allowed, and any additional renewable source will require new interconnection. Another impact of new interconnection is in Vojvodina, so the part from Belgrade to Hungary. So at this point, we received a study where our project is actually limited with the interconnection with Hungary. Until a new interconnection is built, we cannot increase more than, let's say, 10 to 20% of the planned renewables in this region. So there is a big importance of the grid development, but also we need the certainty which project will be built, because every TSO has a lineup of gigawatts and gigawatts of application. So we need to meet in the middle. That's why I think it's very important to discuss.
Very crucial point, and that's also now my question to Biljana. So first of all, actually, what you described for Serbia, Montenegro, we see also in Romania. You know, very often now new projects come with operational limitations, or of course they need to wait a couple of years or a decade to connect to the grid. So Biljana, we've seen, of course, what happens in the UK, grid connection timeline of 10, 15 years for projects, but you're active globally. So what is your take? And I think this is also a question for Massimo. So what is better for a developer to have, you know, a somewhat longer timeline for a new project, or perhaps to support the TSO with co-investing in grid enhancement, then looking to recover this investment down the road, or perhaps maybe to live with operational limitations in certain times of the year?
Yeah, thank you, Nikola. That's a very good question. So I just want to kind of touch few points for the audience to know. In UK, the network which is built for offshore wind farms, and in the moment we have 12 gigawatts of operating offshore wind farms, and another 50 gigawatts are coming, which are going to be connected in a kind of coordinated design, belongs to so-called offshore transmission owner network. That is not the network which is operated and owned by National Grid, Scottish Power, or SSE, which are 3 network operators onshore. How that system works: the offshore developer comes, the generator builds the network at the first stage, and then in the process of competitive auction or tender, that network then is sold to the best bidder. So we have offshore transmission owners which operate and own the network. So this is one of the way how UK introduced the competition in the network many years ago, and it is continued now with the holistic network design. Second point is that in UK, we operate with connect and manage for a long time. What that means? Some of the connection have a firm connection, which means that when you connect, you will have guaranteed that your power will be there 100%. And we have non-firm connection, which means that at the point of connection, you might be constrained in a certain period of the year. That is exactly what Andrija was saying. So that means grid will set you a list of contingency under which, if they happened, you will be constrained and you're not going to be compensated. In comparison to the firm connection, we are always compensated. So if grid has a problem and any constraints, we are paid for not being able to access the network. In non-firm connection, there is no revenue or there is no compensation for us, which means that we are not operating, and that is the loss of revenue from our side. On your question, also National Grid is operating in N-2 security criteria, which is probably a little bit more strict in comparison to continental Europe, where probably the N-1 is predominant criteria. So what's better for us as a developer? Really depends in the country. In UK, it's true that we are facing a huge connection queue. Working with system operator is in place, that is not a problem, but building the network onshore is going to be a significant challenge. Regulation in place in order to be able to build onshore connection assets is one of the solution, but permission to build the overhead line or cables onshore in UK is extremely sensitive political topic, and it's not going to be easy going forward. So in the moment, UK is doing complete central planning review, how to do the planning of the network and when is the best to connect the generation, because some part of UK don't want to see no substations, not conversion station, or not wind farms onshore in their backyard. So till we have a view, nothing in my backyard, that is not going to be a transmission system which will be developed economically and efficiently. Some of our projects in UK are facing a delays of connection, and that is the problem which we're trying to manage. One of the commercial services is opportunity as well, but they will need to build a network. Globally, my experience is that situation is even worse. When I was in Vietnam, the connection is down the line much more or less developed than it is in UK. Connection to the network is not only permitting problem, but finance problem as well. And I would say that is the experience I've seen in Oman, in Middle East, and in Egypt. So globally, all the network operators are facing the same problem. The solution is not one-fold. As I said, it is combination of allowing us to invest and help the networks, having a good regulation and commercial framework in place, and collaboration with grid operators. But everything will take time in some way. But connect and manage does work for a certain extent, but connect and manage, don't forget, will extraordinarily increase the operational cost of the system. So that we need to be mindful of that as well.
Thank you, Biljana. Very, very informative. And maybe Massimo, it's hard to add something to what Biljana said, but what is your view on that? Mytilineos, again, active across different geographies. You know, you've seen this and that.
Yeah, we've seen the same situation almost in all the Eastern Europe countries. Let me say something positive, in my opinion. That is the following: there are some regulations, some countries in which they start to tackle this kind of stuff in order, let's say, to make the renewables and the investor put investors in a comfort situation. We are releasing, for example, in Serbia, connections in which, of course, if you want to avoid curtailment and so on, you can be able to do it by investing in some flexibilities infrastructure, like co-located bases or whatsoever, any other kind of arrangement. Maybe Andrija could let's say, be more precise than me on this. In other countries like Italy, for example, the transmission system operator Terna introduced a new level of voltage to connect all the renewables under 18 megawatts, and introduced the 36 kilowatt in order to, let's say, to connect all this kind of renewables and try to lower the grid connection cost. And this is another very important things that everybody around the world is trying to not to play against the renewables and against the grid development, but there are very important examples all over the world, in Eastern Europe as well, that could be taken into account in order to, let's say, to increase our knowledge and, if the case, to put in place. And I would stress what Biljana and you said, that of course there is the possibility everywhere to discuss together with the TSO and DSO to decide to co-invest together in the grid development and try to find the possibility to, let's say, enhance and enable the energy transition, the transition to the greener future, let's say.
I think we've seen, at least in Bulgaria, such examples. Very quick question, and I would ask you for short answers, Dimitar and Andrija, because I want to open the floor then for questions from the audience. So, we've seen curtailments recently throughout our region. Is this the new normal, or is this a temporary thing that is going to pass away with the introduction, perhaps, of significant new storage facilities that are expected to come online in the next couple of years, or perhaps also the mid to short to long-term development of, you know, cross-border enhancements of the existing connections, perhaps even new connections. So maybe Andrija, start with you, because I guess that Dimitar has also some news to share with us, perhaps on some of these developments.
I think I would rather say it's a simple consequence. It's a consequence of acting and not acting. Essentially, cross-border capacities will help. Also, on the other side, developers acted with the increased number of developments, particularly solar. So effectively, we need a flexibility in the grid, and this is probably not acting. My opinion is that the storage and this other type of flexibility should be subsidized and subsidized quickly, and this should be done even 2-3 years ago. This is a solution that is valid. We can see that in California, where the duck curve is flattened. They had insertion of 6 gigawatt in the peak hours when there is a transition from starting or ending the solar. So solutions exist, they're proven. So even the renewables grew up with the subsidies. They didn't grow up by themselves, it was required. And now we require the same with the flexibilities to solve this new reality that we face more often.
Great, and Dimitar, maybe you, because currently, obviously, you were the head of the system operator. You need to go back to the dispatching hall and look at the data real time, manage the grid real time. So, what is your take? How do we solve the current issues going forward?
Well, first of all,
very easy question.
Yes.
No pressure.
No
pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. Okay. There are actually two storylines here, as always. But I would refer to the first one, the market, the properly organized market, because we are in a liberalized market situation. So properly organized market will give the correct signals to all the players what is needed at the moment. Second thing is really integration, seamless integration between the TSOs and between the networks. You know about the 70% rule that is already enforced, and we apply it as Bulgaria. And for the curtailment, I have to remind you then when we have excess of sun generation, also the same is the situation in our neighboring countries, because we are actually in one geographic area, so it's normal. So first of all, I would say market. Second of all, I would say integration really between the networks on a level that is beyond imagination at the moment. This is something that we do actually, we started already, because we have these two feasibility studies. One of them is including all the Eastern European countries. The other one is including the countries that are on actually the south part of Europe, on the peninsula, in order to create these energy corridors to be able to freely transmit this energy. And the second thing is really fast implementation of the new market design, as it is called in Europe, in the European Union, because actually all the questions you are asking at the moment, they have, and all the ideas that our colleagues have, they have a very nice implementation that is provided exactly by this market design. The faster it goes in force, in operation, the faster these challenges will be solved. Because then we'll have a new type of services, we'll have this grid integration, and we'll have these new flexibilities, which will be built in order to replace the current sources of flexibility that we are using.
So market integration, flexibility.
And stability, don't forget
Stability,
it.
of
Always.
course, always, yeah. So we can have a couple of questions. We can take a couple of questions from the audience. Is there something that you would like to ask our panelists? Yes, we have a question here. I'll ask you to be short because we are a bit over time and we would like to not eat from the time of the other panelists. So present yourself and...
Yes, I'm Simeon Beloreshki, General Manager of Stratum Engineering. A very quick question regarding the grid. Some 20 years ago or so, it's just normal to have loads around 10 gigawatts, for example. Then after so many years, we have done a lot of upgrades and interconnection, etc. In your estimation, how good is the Bulgarian national grid compared to the other people in terms of capacity to other country in Europe? My evaluation is that we are quite good at that, but I could be wrong. And the second one, we're talking about new grids that are new lines that needs to be built. It takes years. On the other side, in USA, they're doing reconductoring with advanced conductor. Is it something that is happening already in Europe? And if not, why not? Thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
We also have 3 questions from Slido.
Okay, great.
And in the meantime, I'll ask the next panelists to go for the microphones so we can be switched.
So should I start?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, thanks. First question. When it was built, these guys were extremely clever, I would say. Because now when I operate it, I see for really certain situations how enormously clever these people were in order to provide me with these tools. Second of all, the problem is not the Bulgarian grid, the problem is the amount of interconnection, because we are operating even until, let's say, 2019, with 15% of our capacity for exchange. This was the rule. Now, it's 70% of the thermal capacity of the interconnections. So, let's say if we had exchanges of roughly up to 600-700 megawatts. Now we are able, because of the coupled markets, to exchange even up to 4,000 megawatts. 4,000 megawatts is the load, the peak load today in Bulgaria. Maybe not today, but let's say last week the peak load was 4,100 megawatts. So there is a possibility really to import all the energy if the price is less according to the market coupling. So this is a problem. Third problem regarding the network, if we are talking only for Bulgaria, is that actually the renewables that are producing a lot of generation, they are connected to usually areas where we don't have that developed network, because they used to be agricultural areas and so on and so on. And our network is designed and oriented around our conventional generation and the big loads, which, as you can imagine, are in the cities and around the cities for the by means of economy. So interconnecting, especially in this market situation, is becoming essential. Also, of course, extending the internal network because of this large capacity in feed that is coming from renewables. Yes, it's also obligatory, otherwise curtailment will follow.
Maybe just to include the regional level I mean, permitting and interconnection queues, I think we are all aware because this is what most companies here face on a daily basis. But what about permitting of these new power lines? Actually, do we need so many new power lines, or do we need to upgrade the capacity and the facilities at the national level to automatically also increase now, even in the midterm, the cross-border capacity?
Maybe the best question. A grid that is unloaded and the grid that is overloaded are creating almost the same problems. So we have to really, beyond borders and even beyond region, to plan very carefully what is needed in order to keep the grid really safe and to keep the system security as it is. Also, I see here a question that is connected to yours. Actually, the biggest advantage of the interconnected, of the synchronous area of continental Europe is that the inertia is dependent from all the sources in the whole area. If you want to divide it in small areas, then we'll go back 20 years ago when there was first and second synchronous zone. And for example, one power plant, one generator in Maritz 2 power plant was causing something like 80 millihertz of decreasing of frequency. This is the answer to the first question. And in a situation where we are losing conventional generation and we need to share the reserves and the flexibility among our systems, and we are talking about more and more interconnection, cooperation, and so on, this won't be a very good approach to reach it.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting. As we are already a bit over time, I would like to ask our panelists for a final message to the audience. Biljana, starting with you, what is your takeaway? What is the most important theme that you want to put forward?
I think that I would like to stress that we need to think more actively about a role of the big demand in the network. And what I'm talking about here is the gigawatts of hydrogen, which developers want to connect. How the hydrogen as a flexibility and a storage and provider can be integrated in the network, with helping the network, not making network more difficult. I'm a strong believer that, as our colleague Zarchev said, market need to be properly developed and giving the right signals for us to financially develop the project and have justification for our project and help us to connect and help grid as well to solve the problems which they have. I am not believer that building the network is the only solution. It is the solution, but to the certain point. We need to go away from that, and to your point, is a congestion a reality or something which will be norm? I would say it is going to be a norm in the future, and it's not going to go away. If we don't act properly, it's going to get even worse. So let's make all players to contribute to the solution rather than everything put to the grid operator and waiting for them to come with a magic solution. The magic solution doesn't exist. I believe the solution for grid sits with us, developers as well. It's just the right dialogue, the right regulatory framework, and the right commercial framework for us to be incentivized.
Massimo.
Yeah, so the payout, which is the payout? In my opinion, the payout is the following. So European regulations are there. Third energy package and whatever is there to let, and let's say to have the possibility to discuss together and co-invest together, the private sector and the public sector, to try to give us a partial answer to all the demand, the question that we have: grid development, market development, and also creating great infrastructure for energy, for the market, for the grid balancing. So in my opinion, it's time to really discuss the possibility to let the private sector become part and not, play against, to be part of the development of the grid and to the development of the energy system in each country.
Thank you very much. Andrija,
I will just
final thoughts.
Thank you. I will just add to Massimo. I think that for sure, at least we have evolved as a developers. I think we have better and better understanding how the system works. We are ready to offer advanced solution in terms of renewables, either a hybrid project with added flexibility. We are ready to participate, even having a special dedicated teams with analytics who can support this flexibility. If you want to do a demand side flexibility example in Croatia is 2 years to develop this. But I think we as an organization, we can communicate better with the TSO and provide a solution, and we need a faster pace. UK is a great example. They have already 4 gigawatts, for example, of battery. They have different kind of flexibility on the demand side, so there is no reason to not to follow them on a much faster pace. But I think that because I worked also for the UK for their national grid, there is a lot of transparency, discussion. You put a proposal, you discuss, and it can be implemented within a year.
Great, thank you very much. Dimitar.
So what can I say? They already drove the way forward. But in general, yes, cooperation between all the stakeholders is becoming essential. This cooperation must not be national already and not even regional, but it should go beyond the borders of our region. This is for sure. It is happening faster and faster. It was not expected to become that fast, and it was expected to have more time for these solutions. But now we have to impose it if we don't want to maintain really the current situation of this, let's say, what curtailment you said. Yes, I think that there were no curtailments after 1st of May, so this is a very good signal towards the organization of the real-time operation.
Absolutely. Very engaging discussion. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to moderate this panel. And now I think we have a very interesting panel coming up about the power of data. So I would invite you all to give a big round of applause to everybody on stage and online.